Hey, welcome in. Well, this is some very interesting news. Very interesting news indeed. Here's from the Daily Mail. Out of control woke leftism and cancel culture from the U.S. is a threat to France because it attacks the nation's heritage and identity, French politicians and intellectuals say. And that is exactly what the woke leftism does. It is obsessed with attacking the past because it knows if you control the past, you control the future. And obviously it's obsessed with identity, right? Because that's an excellent means of controlling people. But anyway, what's going on here? Politicians, prominent intellectuals, and academics in France have voiced concern that out-of-control leftism and cancel culture from the United States is threatening French identity. So somebody's waking up to this, right? Somebody's waking up to the destructive power of this far leftist ideology. And it's an umbrella in which you have all of the modern ills like the modern feminism, intersectional feminism, critical race theory, critical theory in general. All of the things that seem to have an obsession with divide and conquer. But anyway, let's continue. They are arguing that American ideas on race, gender, post-colonialism, especially those coming from U.S. universities, are undermining French society, and they're an attack on French heritage. Yeah, these things are all true. This is what it does everywhere that it goes. The collection of intellectuals arguing that France is being contaminated by the leftism of America was buoyed last year after French President Emmanuel Macron appeared to side with them. In a speech in October on the fight against separatism, Macron warned against leaving the intellectual debate to others as he cautioned of the certain social science theories entirely imported from the United States. That's not entirely true. We have to be fair here. The root of all this is postmodernism, as I understand it. Here we have something. In the 1970s, a group of post-structuralists in France developed a radical critique of modern philosophy with roots discernible in Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Heidegger, and became known as the postmodern theorists, notably including Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Jean-François Lyotard, Jean Baudrillard, and others. So this was in France, where these ideas, and essentially, postmodern theories say that there's no reality, there's no objectivity, there are no objective truths, and its ideas were a way to attack the foundations of Western institutions and to demoralize them and steer things towards socialism. And just tell me where I'm wrong on this. Tell me where none of this happened, okay? Let's take a look at Foucault here. Tell me if any of this sounds familiar. Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. Foucault's theories primarily address the relationship between power and knowledge. Again, does that sound familiar to you? And how they are used as a form of social control through societal institutions. His thought has influenced academics, so, universities, especially those working in communication studies, anthropology, psychology, sociology, criminology, cultural studies, literary theory, feminism, Marxism, and critical theory. So again, does any of that sound familiar to you? So I don't think it's quite fair for Macron to say that it started in American universities. Well, that's where it's really emanating. That's where it really got a great foothold and is basically totally captured the American institutions. But, France shares some guilt in this as well. Let's be honest here. So when his education minister said there's a battle to wage against an intellectual matrix from American universities, they've got some guilt in this. So what does this come on the heels of anyway? It follows tension over protests against police violence last summer in France, sparked as they were in the U.S. by the death in police custody of George Floyd, which has nothing to do with France. The wave of protests sparked further backlash in universities as students began to put pressure on institutions to disinvite well-known speakers, so deplatforming. Again, we've seen all of this before. It's all very familiar, isn't it? Activists also targeted a play at Sorbonne University where white actors were to wear masks and dark makeup. no doubt out of racial hatred, right? That's the only reason. Quote, there was the idea that we're talking too much about racial questions in France. A historian told the Times of the summer's protests. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Well, people have been saying that in the English-speaking countries for a while now, and nobody's listening. Let's see, what does this say? After 3 Islamist terrorist attacks last fall, the education minister accused the universities of being complicit, no doubt for teaching anti-French rhetoric in the schools. Let's see, he was supported in an open letter from 100 prominent scholars that blasted social theories transferred from North American campuses. Again, it was transferred to North American campuses from France, but in fairness, where it really took off was in American universities, and it's going on to infect the rest of the world. Or, I should say, actually, in free democratic countries, like the nicest places in the world to live, it's ruining those places because if it's not... because in authoritarian countries, obviously, they're not having any of this, for obvious reasons. Let's see, one of the signatories is saying that American influence led to a sort of prohibition in universities to think about the phenomenon of political Islam, in the name of a leftist ideology that considers it the religion of the underprivileged. Yes, so oppressed and oppressor, that is the new leftist ideology. So everything must be viewed through that lens, which means that you can't have any kind of rational conversation about anything, because you can only be talking from the perspective of an oppressor or an oppressed, which is obviously counterproductive. Here's a historian that says... the common agenda of these enemies of European civilization can be summed up in 3 words. Decolonize, demasculate, de-Europeanize. Straight white male, that's the culprit to condemn and the enemy to eliminate. Yes, this all sounds very familiar. All very familiar. So the difference in France right now seems to be that there are academics, high-profile academics, and some elites who are willing to actually talk about it. Who are willing to actually say something as insane as, no, France doesn't suck. No, our culture isn't terrible. No, we don't have to burn down our civilization. And is that a good thing? It is. Let's hope that spreads. Let's hope that this really catches on. No, actually, I'm not a terrible person because of the way that I was born. I don't know. I would like to see that catch on a little bit. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you just like to listen, there's the podcast, Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform. If you look for it, you will find it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.